Okay, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Educators Matter, where learning is the new superpower. I got a special guest for you today. My man, my brother, I've known him for years, doing his thing. Moved around the country a little bit, but I'm going to let him let you know the who, the what, and the where. Take it away.
Uh, Peace, Newsom. I appreciate you for reaching out to me and bringing me on today to just catch up and to chat about everything as it relates to the continual work. I'm Ray James, and I'm most importantly I'm a father and I'm a husband. I'm a husband going on 11 years, a father to two beautiful little brown skinned black girls, and also I have the unique and distinct pleasure of serving as head of school at the Boyce L. Ansley School, a pretty unique independent school here in Atlanta. And yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm in the place some people call Wakanda.
Uh, Facts. Shout out to the girl dads. All right, so just a little bit of what you do, but like, why is education important to Ray James?
Oh man, education is everything. Let me just start there. Education is everything. I think there's no aspect of life, whether it is you're working with a newborn, you're working with a school age kid, you're working with somebody fresh out of college, you're working with a seasoned professional, you're working with an elder person. Everybody in every facet of life is continually learning, continually polishing, changing their perspective, changing their mind. So I think that from a learning standpoint, and from a knowledge acquisition standpoint, education is everywhere. So you can't not be an educator, in my opinion. But in terms of like why I chose this career path, it really started, I'll say, in undergrad. I took a sociology of poverty class, and it went through a lot of historical things. It talked about the Great Depression. It talked about racial economic depression in the South and in different parts of the country. And at the root of it, always tied back to education. It tied back to poverty was directly linked to a lack of education or miseducation. And so I got into work just trying to make sure that I can educate as many souls as possible, big and little, and ultimately help to really fight poverty.
True indeed. What do you love about the work?
I love the fact that every day is different. Every day is an adventure. I can honestly say, as routine as a school is, and as much as you kind of know the cadence of a school year, just with the day-to-day interactions with literal kids that are growing up and changing, and with also with adults who are growing and changing too. It's never ending, and I also love the fact that you get to build relationships with real humans in real ways that impact life far beyond what any of us can imagine. Just yesterday, I was in a Kroger, and I had a young lady look at me. We locked eyes from across the store. I was checking out, and right as I was about to walk out, she came over to me and she said, "Excuse me, did you used to teach at Scott Elementary?" And I'm like, "Yeah, back in the day." And she was like, "Your name, Mr. James?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then she was like, "I'm Miracle." And when she said it, it clicked because I was looking at her eyes, and eyes don't change. And she got to rattling off just things that I had said and done with her and her family 10 plus years ago. And I'm like, man, like this is why this work is so fulfilling, because you may not see it today, you may not see it tomorrow, but I'm truly, I love tilling. I'm looking at my yard right now. I love tilling the land, and that's what I feel like being an educator is. It's like you're not gonna see the results tomorrow, but if you
Right.
keep putting in the consistent work, you keep showing up every single day, eventually you'll realize you got something beautiful on your hands.
True indeed. True indeed. I love that. Um, what would you say is one of the biggest pain points for you when it comes to education?
um, like systemically, or like in a school on a day-to-day basis.
Either one, man. Players choose.
I'm gonna start with school. I'm gonna start with the very micro, and then I'm gonna go macro. Um, one of the biggest, one of my biggest issues or challenges with education is, if I'm not mistaken, a mutual colleague of ours shared this with me some years back. The biggest difference between adults is that adults think there's a difference, and so at a very micro level, at a very micro level, working with adults in schools who are not yet where they think they are and who don't yet have the skills to actualize the goals that you've set before them. That's a challenge. But at a bigger macro level, I think systemically, my biggest challenge is the fact that, like here in Georgia, I'm gonna just use Georgia for example. The funding formula for schools in Georgia has not changed since 1985.
Wow.
You're talking about a 40-year-old system of how you fund schools. And when you think about the last, just let's not even say 40 years, let's just say half of that. The
Right.
last 20 years since 2005, how much of the world has changed, and the
Right.
fact that education, unlike almost every other field in the world, medical, industrial, agricultural, you name it, there's so many financial, there's so many fields that if you look at what it looked like, the routines of it, the habits of it, and the even who it looked like in
Right.
1985, what it looks like now in those fields is totally different. It's far more diverse, far more advanced, far more technologically, entwined. And when you look at schools and you think about 1985, for the most part, the stats were where they are now. From an achievement standpoint, from a funding standpoint, from a hiring standpoint, in terms of like percentage of diversity in the field, and my the real challenge of mine, and this is a very professional challenge, is like I've said it for a long time, but I don't think things will be able to be fully right until we like start over. And I hate to say that. I know that sounds extreme, but I don't see how we can right the wrong while the wrong is actively in motion.
For sure. For sure. Keep that thought. We're gonna double back to that.
All right.
Um, what what are your thoughts on IEPs, individual education plans?
I think every kid should have an IEP. I think every kid should have an IEP. I think every adult should have an IEP, an individualized learning plan for how they learn. And I also know the real reality, and it's funny because I'm gonna actually be speaking next week at the International Dyslexia Association conference, and I'm gonna be talking about my own household. So
Right.
you know, my big girl recently got diagnosed with dyslexia. So, and POW unlocks a new world of IEPs, a new world of modifications and accommodations that must be made. And from an ADA standpoint, those things can literally be with her and follow her into career. However, when I think about IEPs and the way that they're looked at from a colloquial and cultural standpoint, a lot of black folks see an IEP as like a negative thing, and they often don't want the label of special education on their child for whatever stigma, that they're afraid of. But I've in more recent time, I found out that like, oh, this is the cheat code. It's like people with access and privilege will sometimes find through educational psychology, through whatever, they'll find deficits that children may have simply because if you get a psycho ed evaluation, it's going to give you what you're looking for more than likely, whether or not it's like, cool, you got this disorder, this malfunction, but you can still function in a regular class. I think IEPs, it's a double-edged sword, and I say that because there's so many kids who need IEPs, and because of the systems that they're in, they will never be afforded an IEP and will ultimately just be looked at as a problem and as somebody that can't learn. And then I also see the other side of it where there are people literally taking advantage of this for the sake of making sure that their child can have access to extra time, have access to walk away from a test, have access to be rated differently and tested differently, and ultimately be more individualized. And so it's a double-edged sword, man.
True indeed. Uh, what's your thoughts on retention?
Whew. Let me start by saying this. Something that I've learned over time, and I can't even say this was fully my thoughts when we worked together, but over time, I've learned that I feel like kids should advance upon mastery and not time. So what that means is from and that's like a competency based education, like catchphrase, advance upon mastery, not time. And I also think that I think as the system as we know it stands right now in terms of like we have grades, kindergarten, first, second, third, and there are grade level things that we expect a child to be able to do by the end of a certain time. Not necessarily their skill, but by the end of this grade, you should have done this, as opposed to like having more multi-age classes. I think if we had schools where multi-age classes were a norm for the community and for the kids, then retention isn't even a thing. It's just like, cool, you're going to advance upon the time that it's going to take you to advance. However, I also think, because I have to be realistic about where I am, I think that retention, for the most part, if you do it early and you're in an academic setting that can actually remediate, then it can help out a kid. It will benefit them long term. However, when you think about retention, especially as you get to upper elementary and middle school, and don't even mention high school, because of the social stigmas attached to it, it often causes more harm than good.
Do you believe in students getting skipped?
Yeah, I do. And I say that because something I've really been struggling with since the pandemic is a couple of things. Whenever we last worked together, the pandemic was hitting. And I remember they got rid of state testing for the spring 2020 school year. And I remember being so upset because I was like, yo, I was wrong. I think that was my best year of teaching. And I wanted to be able to show the state that, I wanted to be able to show the state, what we were doing. However, when I think about skipping grades and advancing, I think that that it is a testament to what all schools should be. If a child is ready if a child is in seventh grade, but they're academically on ninth grade level, why in the world should we say your next grade is eighth grade? We should be able to say, cool, we have proof of mastery. This child has demonstrated their ability. They do not need to take this next class. It's the same way, you see it in not necessarily the exact same, but when you look at real world and you look at schools itself,
Mm-hmm.
there's no such thing as a school that says you have to teach for 5 years, and then you have to be an instructional coach, and then you have to be an assistant principal, and then you have to be a principal, and then you have to be it doesn't work like that, because we all know it could be a second year person that is just like extremely gifted and talented, and they can advance very quickly. Why don't schools reflect what we are trying to prepare kids for? When you think about, forget schools, you think about just Fortune 500 companies and more jobs that are not education adjacent, is definitely reflective of what schools should be doing, which is why I said like our schools are stuck in the 80s or the 70s or something like that, because everybody know we elected in 2008, we elected Barack Obama, this young senator from Chicago that not many people knew, and arguably he was the greatest president. Some people say of all time, some people say since Lincoln, some people say his impact is like top 3 presidents of all time, and he didn't checklist every single grade that he should have hit. He got skipped. He got skipped.
Yeah. So sounds like your mastery thoughts apply whether it be retention or be advancing. You mentioned testing. What's your thoughts on standardized testing?
It's a racist, archaic system that I think is meant to hold people back and is doing exactly what it's meant to do. I think it's a silly barrier that often pushes people out. I think the same thing on certification. So my same ideas that I have about standardized testing is the same way I look at certifications. I think it is a snapshot in time. It is not indicative of what a person can do or what their true abilities are. And I think that the designers of those tests are part of some that I used to say I'm a research, but at this point in life, I'm like, I ain't got time to research. The educational industrial complex. I think that there are mega corporations that have built billion-dollar industries because they make so much money off of schools to no impact in terms of changing generational outcomes for communities.
What you were teaching prior to becoming a parent, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right. What changed, if anything, on your perspective of kids, of parents, being a teacher of children? prior to being a father yourself?
The first thing I say is what works at work don't work at home. Let me just start by saying that because I think I'm a pretty good educator in terms of like getting kids to move in a certain direction. At home, not the same. But I will say that having been a teacher, there were things because I learned the explicit like I do, we do, you do. I think a lot about how I've taught skills to my girls and how I've taught different lessons. A lot of it is very lesson plan like of like I'm gonna show you, then we're gonna try this out together, and then we're gonna do this. You're gonna do it independently, and because of some of the literal trainings that I've gotten as a teacher around restorative practice, trauma informed care, psychological safety, all the things that make a child feel whole at school. There are things that I consciously will slow down, not necessarily thinking about, let me make sure I do this for my daughter the right way, but it's just like, because I've been trained and indoctrinated to believe that restoration is best, that to believe that, there's a different way of solving problems. We can slow this down a bit. I do find myself applying that with my daughters, and sometimes it works, but as I said, the real reality that I feel more than anything is my effectiveness, and this is the struggle I got with being a parent. My effectiveness at work ain't the same as it is at home.
Yeah. So let's just create a scenario where your pre-parent self was having a conversation with the now you girl dad. What advice would you give each other?
The biggest advice would be, and this is something that I'm saying next week in that talk I tell you I got to give is, I have to drink the Kool-Aid that I've been pouring. And I say that because there are things that I have told parents that they need to do with their kids. There are things that I've told kids that they need to do that I, as a parent of a child, have not done, have not said, have not held my kid accountable to. And so the thing that I would tell myself is like, Ray, if you pouring this Kool-Aid for people and you're telling people and you're seeing the impact of this positive Kool-Aid that you're giving these families, these resources, also make sure you pour that back in at home because, make sure you take care of home first and always, but also make sure you practice what you preach.
Yeah, people love a good cold glass of Kool-Aid when it's made right. Um, what do you think the responsibility percentage is on children being taught from parents versus teachers?
It's hard to say because depending on the age, it changes. I think if you're talking developmental years, birth to 3, I think parents' responsibility, parent impact is like 80%, and then child care is like 20% in terms of teaching them how to cooperate, how to like move along in a line, how to like eat in their spot, those things that you learn at daycare and things like that. And then when you're talking about early childhood education, like 4 to let's just say 7, I think it's 70-30. It quickly flipped, and that 70 is on schools. And I say that a lot of folks will say, well, they need to get home training, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, yo, parents are victims of the same school systems that their kids are in. So how do you expect the parents to be able to parent correctly when the school did not adequately instruct them on how to even become a fully functioning adult? And then I know a lot of educators will say, nah, parents need more. And it's like, no, at a core, and I don't like to pull this up, but at a core reason for public education in America, it was rooted in childcare. Let's be very clear.
Yeah.
It was rooted in people have to go to work in this capitalistic society, and we need somewhere for them to be. And thankfully, a long time ago, we realized we needed a more educated population. And so they created, parochial and public schools as we know them. And I do think a lot of schools need to understand that they are taking on the responsibility of parent for the majority of a child's waking day. And so the impact of who that child becomes, you can say, yes, it's because of the family. And is the family a big, big, big impactor? Yes. However, I think schools need to take a bigger step forward to say, this is actually our lane. We're the experts in this child development stuff. Parents are not experts at child development, language acquisition. They just trying to make it. They're going to work for the most part, but the expertise lies at the school. So why not put more onus and also more resources and all the things into school so that they can adequately kind of co-parent. So I think as you get older, more responsibility falls on the school. But then once you get to like seventh, eighth grade, that shift goes from like parents and schools to now kids step
Yeah.
up. Now it's on you. We've given you the tools. You're ready. And any mistake you make now, your mama told you otherwise and your school taught you otherwise.
Yeah,
And now it's on you.
for sure. What are your thoughts on teaching from your experience as a student till now? Like, what do you think has changed? And the things that have changed, have they changed for the better, for the worse? What's some of the things that you think about from the time when you were in school as a student?
Um, Let me just say, and this very much being a black male educator and being a black male that taught English too. Um, as a kid, I one it wasn't until high school that I realized that black men could teach. I just didn't know it was a thing, had never seen it, had never heard of it. And when I did see them as teachers, I was like, the only reason they teach is because they coach. They have to teach to be able to work here because they got to have something to do during the day when the kids ain't, at practice. And so I didn't even have an idea about teachers. I just thought these are just people that work in the school that help me learn stuff and they have no real impact on who and what I will become. And now looking back and thinking about, what I think about schools and teachers in general, I think that teachers have the hardest job in the world because to that point around the parent partnership, so much is on the teacher. So much of what and who a child becomes happens inside that classroom, and the parent may never ever know that their child started changing because of something that happened at school or something that a teacher said, whether it's a good thing or bad thing. And I think that teachers also are some of the dopest individuals because I've met so many talented teachers that one have spun out different careers, different enterprises, and I've met so many just talented teachers that just humans that can literally get kids to understand new information. And people don't realize it, but that is an extremely hard skill. Like that's the true testament of like if you know something, you can
Yeah,
teach it.
right.
And when I think about teachers, man, they got the heart next to people that literally perform surgery on humans. I think teachers have the second place most difficult job in our society, and I think in terms of appreciation, that's one of the reasons why it's the second most. It really should be the first most because when you think about the impact of a teacher on a child's trajectory, that we all
Yeah,
know is like a real life thing. A teacher can change, or make or break. And the fact that we still don't pay teachers adequately, the fact that so many teachers still have to work multiple jobs, have to try to seek out leadership for the sake of just more compensation, is a travesty, and it's also a reason why we still stuck in that 1985 pace because
yeah,
we're not able to really support teachers in the way that we could and that we should, and that there are
true.
plenty of international examples of how we could.
Right. So you mentioned not knowing that even black men were teaching at a young age. You a black man in education, was barely 1% of teachers, and it's even a fraction of that for leaders and admin. What's your thoughts there? I mean, you're a unicorn, bro.
And so I thank God that I lived and worked in Newark, New Jersey. Let me say that because something that Atlanta educators sometimes will say about KIP in Atlanta, about Teach for America in Atlanta, and about schools in Atlanta in general. And I'm not just speaking on Atlanta public schools. I'm speaking Atlanta, Gwinnett, Cobb, DeKalb, Clayton, private schools. Atlanta, it will blind you to the reality of the rest of the world. And I say that because where I work and live and the schools that I've worked in and led and been in Atlanta, isn't like on my staff, 33% of our staff is black men. And in just about every school that I've ever worked in, it's usually been like a quarter to like 30% of the staff is black men. But I think that that's only true to Atlanta because I'm also not absent-minded to say that this is a very unique anomaly that's not really true in many other parts of the country. I think that the biggest reason that people of color don't become educators is because what they're looking at, the mirror, the window into a new reality, is typically something that's atypical to their day-to-day reality. And so many folks, get burned by schools. They got bad impressions, and or just from a cultural affinity standpoint, they're like, that's not what I do. That's not for me. Even though we have, histories and legacies of brilliant black educators that have changed the game and are still paving and creating new lanes of thought leadership across the country. When you think about, like, I tell people a lot, like, working in New Jersey helped me to realize how different Atlanta was, because it made me see that, oh snap, the majority of teachers are actually white women. The majority of school leaders are actually, despite all them white women, that's like in the masses, at the very top is mostly white men that are designing and iterating and being heralded as equity champions and all the things. And is also to a point where I do wonder if in different parts of the country, if there are white school leaders who have consciously taken advantage of their whiteness in low income, marginalized communities for the sake of gatekeeping and making sure that, it's still kind of like, forget 1985, let's rewind that by like 100 years or so.
Right. Indeed. Speaking of which, any thoughts on like HBCUs versus PWIs and you
Let
know?
me say this. I'm a proud PWI guy. LSU, you see it. I think we number 10 right now. And also we not a one sports school or just a sports school. But so that being said, I'm also kind of, I have and my master's is actually in college administration. So from a real research standpoint, and this is something I love to say every now and again on social media, but the HBCU folks be coming for me. Youth and black people at PWIs actually have a higher sense of and higher pride in their racial ethnicity, because one, you are more conscious of it because you see that you are other, and two, you have to find spaces where you can be amongst others. And so from a awareness and a pride standpoint, you find far more black people that are proud of who they are as it is in school. I think the HBCU pride that you see in a lot of alum is like very loud and very boisterous and very impactful too. But I also think that HBCUs, just like schools for Native populations, for Latino, for women, I think that they still need to exist because historically we have been marginalized, and so those schools are a testament to the legacy that so many educators paved for us. And if it had not been for HBCUs, like, you and I wouldn't be doing the work that we're doing on a daily basis. So whether or not we went to HBCU or whether or not we're big fans of them, we have to, pay homage to, and we have to also make sure that they exist for generations to come.
True. So let's just dream for a minute. If you could create your own school, no parameters, wave your magic wand, make it happen. Walk me through it. What would it look like?
Quickly. So one, I'm gonna start thinking like, cool, where is it? Is it in the north or is it in the south? Because I think that there's a difference once you cross that Mason-Dixon. There's a difference. But one, I'm gonna start with staffing, and then I'm gonna get to kids. From a staffing standpoint, all of our teachers, no teacher in our building would feel as if they are undercompensated. They will feel as if they are overcompensated. They would get, I would love to be able to start them out at six-figure salaries, because I do believe you get what you pay for, and people work harder when you pay them more. I just think that that's a fact based on what I've seen. I think that every single teacher would have an instructional coach, and maybe even two instructional coaches, one that can help with like the management side of things and like the professional, like the professional side of things, but also on the more adaptive side of things and the more kind of pedagogy side, you need somebody that can help you become an actual better teacher, a better content pedagogue. I think that from a facility standpoint, we wouldn't be concerned with any facilities needs. We would have ample indoor and outdoor space. We would have flexible seating in the classroom. The school would be it would reflect the community it's in, and it would also reflect some of the hopes and dreams of the community. So it wouldn't, if it's in a low income community, it's not going to look like a low income school. It's going to look like a palace, because that's the hopes and the dreams. I also think that the transportation of the school, because that's another big thing that I think about a lot with schools, given where I work now. I think that transportation would not be a barrier for anybody, whether it be public transportation that the school provides access to, or school based transportation through buses or whatever. That would not be a barrier for any kid or family wanting to get to school. And for families, schools would feel like places of healing and restoration. Because as I mentioned, for the communities where my fight is, where I personally am going to spend my life at, schools have not been safe places. And so the school will be a place where parents can come in and reveal what's going on, to actually get assistance, and not be judged, not be marginalized, and also not be harmed by revealing what's going on, whether it be, hey, I'm experiencing homelessness. Hey, like there was some domestic abuse last night, or hey, like I just got an offer from my job because let's say I'm a black person and I do make a lot of money, to go work 2 weeks up in Egypt, and I want to take my child. Can I take my child without them falling behind or being, any type of barrier on the school? And I think for kids, I think that the school it would just be overflowing with joy. They wouldn't even realize that they're learning so much. It would be overflowing with just so much joy, so much peace, but also so much intellectual preparation and challenge, that when they leave there, they are able to, no matter the age, they're able to say that they are better people because of the school that they went to and the people that inhabited that school, from the top to the bottom.
That's what's up. What would you call it?
Excuse my French.
Hey, boom, boom, boom.
Man, I don't know, man. I don't know. We're gonna call it. I don't know. We're gonna call it the. I don't know. The free school.
Free school.
Yep.
All right. You never know, man. People watching might want to put some money behind that.
Hey, tell them to invest.
True indeed. So where you see yourself, man? 3 years, 5 years?
Oh man. So we ain't caught up in a minute, but quick little piece about where I'm at currently, to that question, because it's actually a question that is spinning right now. Well, not really spinning, but it's like some things are just becoming clear. I'm head of school of a very unique school. It's a tuition-free private school for children who are currently experiencing homelessness in Atlanta. And we're completely funded through philanthropy, which means that my job, I am still an educator because I work at a school, but I'm really more so like a nonprofit executive and a fundraiser, to be completely honest. But I do it all. And the thing that I do educate people on is on the reality of homelessness and what it looks like on the kid side of things, on the family side of things, because it's not, the cisgendered male standing on the side of the road who you are afraid of or you think is about to come tap your window or whatever. It is far more intimate and more proximate than you would ever imagine. All that being said, in 3 to 5 years, if you literally ask me up in like May, I think I will have an actual answer, because my school is about to go into a capital campaign to purchase a permanent location for the school. And from what some of my board members have been floating to me is that they're about to try to make me sign a multi-year contract, which is like good for job security, but also from a 3 to 5 year standpoint, it would for sure lock me in. And I've told people that because of the work I'm doing now and because of the lens that I'm getting on like community and school, like for sure, still in a school. I go to a school. I was at a school today. I go to a school every single day. I am there for huddle in the morning, and I'm there for PDs, and I'm there for all the things. And I also do a lot of external stakeholder engagement and a lot of community relations, really. So if in 5 years I'm not still in my same seat, which, my position is a very retirable position. Like people retire as heads of schools, it's a common theme. If I don't retire from the Ansley School, then I honestly don't know. And the next 2 to 3 years politically are also going to kind of impact that, because when I look at what's happening nationally and what I fear is also gonna trickle down and impact kids and generations to come. I have no idea where this country's gonna be in the next 3 to 5 years, and it really does. It doesn't make me fearful, but it just makes me cautiously aware that we could be on the edge of a major shift in what we know as day-to-day life, a major shift in what we know as school, a major shift in what we know as access to learning, um, and even a major shift in what we know as freaking democracy. And not to get political at all, but I think when I think about 3 to 5 years, if you had asked me like 5 years ago, I would have been like, cool, I'll be, leading the school, helping out, whatever, whatever. But now I think if I can get on the other side of 2028, I'd be able to give a clearer answer, because I do think about like, cool, do I need to do something more community facing, something, I don't know, elected politics? I truly don't know, but I couldn't see myself ever in the space that I'm in now, and knowing what I know about Georgia in general, not any other state, but Georgia public education, I couldn't see myself ever returning to public schools. Um, just being fully real.
Yeah. What's your student population? How many students you have?
So we got a very small school. We cap classes at 15 students, and we have one class per grade. So we have 98 kids, I think, technically enrolled. But those 98 kids are 63 families across 24 zip codes and 4 counties out here. And the reason that it's such a small school is because it's a full 2-gen approach to school. So we do full service, like we're full service case management for families, therapeutic services in house for kids and for families. And I have at least 6 staff members that are not on staff for the kids. They're literally on staff for the parents. Um, and so, from a budget standpoint, we keep our class size small so that we can ultimately, what my plan and prayer is for the school is that we're creating a model of what educational equity actually can be. And at a micro level and at a macro level, we're creating a model for what a healthy ecosystem could be, which is why the possible, like me signing a multi-year contract might become a thing, because where we're moving the school is next to Morehouse School of Medicine. It's next to a well-known performing arts high school. It is zero point 0.2 miles away from a MARTA train stop. It is near a rec center. It is near a soccer complex. It is near affordable housing. It is near 2 grocery stores that are arguably walking distance. They're 1 mile away from the school in either direction. But it is a model of what I feel like an ecosystem could be that really can help kids and families thrive and grow in a way that most of the time schools are like on the outskirts. So they're like, cool, you got to drive out your neighborhood. I remember talking to you about that in Newark. Like, you have to drive out of your neighborhood to go to school. That's not a healthy ecosystem. Like, because ultimately that product, that kid is now taking his talents to somewhere else. And then if you let him keep taking his talent somewhere else, eventually he's going to take them even further away from his community. So yeah.
Yeah. What's your staff numbers?
We got 35 full-time staff, because we have really, really good ratios. We got 2 teachers, 2 full-time teachers in every class. So I got 14 teachers total. I got 2 academic leads. They're both instructional coaches, but that's my principal and assistant principal. And then I got a development team of 4. I got a social service team of 6, and an operations team of 4. Yeah, 4.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'll get you out of here on this last question.
Yeah.
What message do you have, or do you want educators to know?
You said this to me, and I didn't understand it back whenever I was getting ready to transition from our school up in Newark, New Jersey. But you really have to be in it for the long game, because you're not gonna. There's no silver bullet to it. There's no one size fits all approach, which is why I kept mentioning, like, it depends on the region, it depends on where you're at, because what works in some places won't work everywhere. But stay in it for the long game, and just remember that is the true meaning of life is to plant trees, under the shade of which you will never sit. And so just know that you always got to live by Sankofa. Like, go back and get it. Like, if you have made it even a little bit, please pour it back into the next generation, because that's all that matters at the end of the day. That's why my little girls is the only thing that matter for me and my wife, because at the end of the day, one day we going to die. Point blank, period. And when I think about all the kids in schools that I've worked in, I just always think about the adults walking around as like, all of y'all going to be gone before these kids. So we got to make sure that we're doing our best to make sure that the next generation is always better than the first one.
True indeed. Ray James, I appreciate you making the time, brother. I appreciate. I'm proud of all the things that you're doing. As black men, we got to make sure that we continue to fight the good fight, and I know that you're doing it with integrity and dedication. So appreciate you, man.
I appreciate you, brother.
For sure.